Okay, so I am going to be mass making some cards. I'm going to show you my thought process and show you kind of what I'm using. I used to be a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and of course I never sold anything, but I got a lot of cool things. I still stand by the product. I love it. I think their stamps, their papers, everything is awesome. It all coordinates. So first of all, we're going to use a couple sentiments that I have picked out. And I have Daffodil Delight is a Stampin' Up! Stamp pad. I have a stamp block. I have some die cuts. I have my score tool. I have my Cricut trimmer. I have my scoreboard, which you don't have to have a scoreboard. And then I have my paper. I have white paper from Stampin' Up! And it's a little bit of a thicker paper. I don't really know what the weight is on it, but I can tell by handling it, it's a little bit of a thicker paper. So if you want a thicker card, then you're gonna wanna look for something thicker. What I mean by that is this is actually Recollections, and it's a pretty good weight paper as well. And I get this from Michaels. I always keep in stock when they have their like buy one get one free, or they'll do 3 for $9.99, which is a really great deal. But it's a 65-pound. I wouldn't go any lower than that for the base of a card, but higher is better. So I usually have these in my basic colors. I have white, cream, craft color, and then black, because those would be my bases for my cards. So we have that. I also have in the paper that matches the stamp pad, Daffodil Delight. I have a couple of scraps in Daffodil Delight and one in Just Jade. These are all Stampin' Up! Products. I have a couple of little scrap pieces of white for my stamping. And then I don't remember which collection this came from, but it is from Stampin' Up! They probably don't have it anymore because this was a few seasons ago, and I don't believe they don't continue to carry the same thing. They retire things and then they start out with new things. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this stuff aside, and we're going to do some cutting. Now, I am going to be making an A2 size card. A2 size card is going to give you a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card, but you get 2 cards out of 1 sheet of paper. Now, if you wanted what they call an A7 card, which is a 5 by 7 card, you're going to cut this down 10 by 7. But we are going to be doing the A2 cards. I have my little cheat sheet here. I got this from May Made It. I think I talked about this in the last video. So what we are going to do is I'm going to make 2 different folds in the card to show you. So my first one, since obviously I have a 11, you have an 11 this way, I am going to cut at 5 1/2. Oop, 5 1/2. Get this out of the way for a second so you can see it. So I'm going to cut at 5 1/2. And I'm going to have 2 cards out of this. The next one, I'm going to make the card a little bit different, and the fold is going to be different. So I'm going to take this one, and since this is 8 1/2, I am going to cut it at 4 1/4. And you'll see in a minute how we're going to get 2 different cards. For card makers, you know this. And you're all set. But some people who've never made a card before might be wondering how you can do this. So now I'm going to get my scoreboard, which you don't have to use a scoreboard. You can simply fold in half. But I will say that the scoreboard does help you get a nicer fold. And so we're here on the 11 inch. And I am going to score at, and it probably looks sideways to you, but this is comfortable for me to score this way. So I'm going to score at 5.5, which is going to be the middle. And I'm not going to push super duper hard, and especially with thinner papers, you just don't want to cut through your paper. So I'm just going to score it a few times, but I'm not going to press super hard. And I'm going to do that one at 5.5. And you can hear it when you first score it, the little ksh, I love that sound. So now I'm going to be doing a different fold, and I'm going to be taking the 8.5 side, and I'm going to be scoring at 4.25 because I want to get my half. And again, I'm not going to go super hard. I'm just going to drag it through there a couple times. And I'm going to do the same for this one, 4.25. And trust me, I've messed this up before. Don't throw it away though, because this can be your scrap paper for your stamping your sentiments. Okay, that's all the scoring I'm going to need to do for any of the cards. So now you take your card. Where you scored into the card is you want to fold that same way. And the reason is you get a smoother edge, where if you fold this way, it's just a little more bumpier. So on the outside of your card, you just get a nicer edge. And then you can, if you want, take your bone folder. I think we've talked about this before. I think I got that one from Dollar Tree. And then just smooth that edge out. I don't push real hard because I don't want to disrupt the integrity, I guess, of the top of the card. And then I'm going to do the same for this one. And then I always kind of like make sure I'm lining them up at the bottom just in case I'm a little wonky up here. And then just pressing that down so that I don't get like uneven down here, which you can always fix. But now this one, we're going to fold this way. And we still have an A2 card. It's just the fold is going to be different. See what I mean about just making sure that is in a good spot before you give it that nice final fold. Okay, so now you have a couple of different options for cards. So this one can stand and be like this, or it can open like this. And then you can do the same thing with this one. It can be one that stands or one that opens from right to left. Okay, so when I'm mass making the cards, I would have a bunch of these done, all in different ways, just to get them done. These would all be done, and then I would start picking out my papers. I pick out patterned paper first. So I go through and pick out all the kind of different pattern paper that I want. And because I do have matching things, not that you can't find matching stuff in just a cardstock paper pack, you know, you can get different colors and such, and then match your papers up. You can do it that way. I just happen to have matching items. So I am going to first pick out my paper, then I'm going to pick out my mat. So what I mean by mat, if you're new to cards, is your matting around the frame of your actual picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, what doesn't really matter, but I want to get the most use out of my paper that I can. And I know cutting it certain ways is going to give me good use. I will probably get the same amount out of each side. It doesn't matter. So now what we're going to do is cut down the mat. And the mat is going to be, you can do this a 1/16 of an inch, or you can do it an 1/8 of an inch. An 1/8 is fine with me. Some people like that just really, really tiny. No, I don't get that fussy with it. So what we're going to want to do, since this was 4 1/4, I'm looking for 4. And now I'm going to get 2 out of this. So I am also now looking for, I'm going to turn my paper because I'm looking to make sure my mat is going to fit. And this was 5.5. So now I'm wanting 5 1/4. So I'm only taking it down 1/4 inch on either side. Oop, 5 1/4. 5 1/4, Laura, not 4 1/4. So 5 1/4. And then you have your mat. Now, obviously, you have the same mat for the other side. So I am going to go ahead and cut this one down to 5, what did I say, 5 1/4. Sometimes I have to recheck myself. What is that old saying? Measure twice, cut once, I think it is. So 5 1/4. I'm going to get rid of that little bit. I'm not going to save it. And now I have 2 mats. Okay, so if I wanted a different color, I would just move on to something else, which you're going to see a little bit later. Now I am going to take my piece, and I want this to be, again, 1/4 inch shorter than my mat. So this mat is 4, so we need to make this 3 3/4. And then this was 5 1/4. We want to make this 5. Now these little pieces I am going to save because these can be matted, as you're going to see when I show you, and used on a card as well. So I don't get rid of my pattern paper. Okay, or big pieces of my solid paper. So now we start building our card. Now this is just a basic, and I'm going to show you just some different variations of the card that I made. So this is how this card is going to be stacked. And we're going to go from there. So I'm going to set this aside. And then we're going to stamp. So I am going to take my little white cards here, and I'm going to put my thoughts are with you. I never assemble anything until everything's ready to be laid out. I never get it going. And I never, if I'm going to stamp something in the center, I never stamp until, or I never assemble until I stamp. Because if I get this wonky and I can't fix it, I can always get another new card. And this won't go to waste because I could stamp a sentiment on the other side, or I could do something different, so I don't throw it away. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my Daffodil Delight. Now, I only need one of these, but my theory is, you know, I might as well make about 3 of them. 2 to 3 of them is usually what I do, because if I mess it up, or I don't quite get the right cut, or I don't get quite the right stamp, then I don't have to go back and open everything up again. And then I know this is going to be a circle, so I'm just basically trying to get it in the center, because I'm actually going to put my circle over it later. Plus, I have stamps for future cards. I have my sentiments for future cards. And I'm going to show you real quick. And this is what I like about Stampin' Up, because once you turn the pad over, this is the top, but your pad is now placed down to the bottom, which keeps your ink to the surface of the pad. That's what I really like. And I do that with my Memento. I actually just turn it upside down to keep the ink where I want it. So this is how I clean my ink pads. And when I get going to do like mass stamping, I usually do this first, just to kind of get some excess off. Then I use my, who is this? Lawn Fawn. And this you just re-wet it each time, and then you just clean your stamps off. So I have everything usually ready to go, and I do it within a process. Now, I'm going to take some of my die cuts, and this is where I'm going to sort of line this up to where I want it. And I usually keep a little bit of washi tape because I want to keep that in place. I don't want that die cut moving on me when it is in the machine. And this is, again, why I do extra. If I mess that up, I can just do another one real quick. I don't have to get the stamps all back out again. And also, I'm going to be running through, and since these all came from the same die set, this is Framelits by Sizzix. Here's the number in case you go looking for it. I think it's still available. Probably find it on Amazon, or you might find it at Michael's, Joann's, Hobby Lobby. But since they're all the same, you can run them all through at the same time. I have found with different types, sometimes you can't run them all through because they don't get cut. You have to do them separately. So now I'm going to take my extra colors, and I am going to go to my die cut machine and run these through. And there you go. So now I have a mat for my sentiment, and this is going to go right in the middle of this particular card. Now, again, before I assemble, I'm going to stamp on the inside. Now, sometimes I run off my computer, I run sentiments that I have actually done myself. But this time I'm going to stamp this. So I'm going to change out my block. And you want to use a block that's not way bigger than your stamp, I learned. Because if you do, you're going to take a chance of getting the edges in the ink, and then that's going to end up on your card. Now, I'm sure people have many different ways of doing this. I kind of like to line my card up with the edge of my mat, my cutting mat, because I feel like it's going to help me get a better stamp that's in the middle or where I want it placed. You can also draw a couple of very light pencil lines and erase them when you're done. But I'm just going to do it this way. I think I'm going to do a test one real quick, just to make sure my stamp is stamping well. And then I think I want it about right here. And when you're stamping, it's not a matter of rocking it, pushing it. You want to give it a little bit of pressure, but you want to go straight down and then straight up. Because if you start rocking it, you're going to get smudges. It is going to get crooked, and you're not going to be happy with it. And it's a little bit off, but not much. And I'm not unhappy with that. So we're going to go with that. And I'm going to start layering my card now. So you will have to decide which way you want your card to go. If you wanted it to go this way, you're going to have to be conscious of the pattern of the paper, as well as where you want to put your sentiments. But mine's going to go this way, so I'm actually going to start my layering here first. And I'm just going to get my art glitter glue. And then, of course, I have a bunch of old Stampin' Up! Magazines that I use to cover my surface. I got super glue on my mat the other day. I was so sad. I've tried so hard to keep this mat clean, and here I went and got super glue. And you don't need a lot, probably not in camera. You know, you just want to get that stuck down to the mat. And another thing I've learned is I do not just stick the whole thing down. I sort of hold on to a corner and eyeball it. See, I don't have it quite. Before I just press, because that way, if I'm too off, this was a little bit thicker on that side, but I'm not going to let it worry me. then I can lift it up, because the art glitter glue is sort of a one and done type deal here. Now this art glitter glue you can only get, or you should only buy, I guess Amazon will still ship it, but I get mine from MayMayMadeIt.com, and they won't ship at certain times of the year. It's too cold, and they'll tell you when they start shipping. So I usually try to get what I'm gonna need to get me through the winter, in the summertime when they will ship it. So again, I'm gonna do that same process and kind of hold the corner and see where I'm at. I think I can move over a little bit. But see how you can wiggle it, but once it's down, it's down. It's not coming up. And I'm going to do the same thing for the sentiment. I'm just going to try to get this as close to center as possible. And I'm not going to press down until I feel like I sort of have it in a good spot. Then I'll press down, and same for this side, or this one. Now you can just cut little squares if you don't have die cuts. You can, if you have punches, you can use punches. I'm just using what I have. Let's go just a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm gonna make sure that's down. And now I am going to use some of my foam strips here. Now I get these from the Dollar Tree. They come like this. You'll find them in the automotive section. I don't actually have a package, but you'll find them in the automotive. I just cut them all apart. Sometimes they're a little sticky. I just cut them all apart, throw them in my drawer, and then I just have them ready to go when I want to do a card or anything else that I want to make a little bit higher. And I probably go overboard, I'm sure. Positive. And then I just use my little pokey tool and get that top off of this side. Now these work great for paper. I haven't had a problem with anything coming up. There is the actual crafter square that you can buy that I don't care for. I don't think it's as good. But you could always put glue on the back of these too, but then you kind of lose the purpose of, you might as well go buy some foam at that point. Where do I want this? Where do I want this? If I wanted to add some embellishments, I might go ahead and leave that spot open, but I think yeah, maybe I do. I think maybe I do, because I have the stuff, and there you go. So there you have a sympathy card, and unfortunately I'm making many and hoping I have to use none. So what is my mass making process? Well, if you take the process I just did and multiply that times 10, then that is my mass making process. And I'm going to show you a container. So here are cards I'm getting ready to assemble. They do not have the stamping inside, but I'll go through and do that before I actually put them together. Plus I want to add a few more embellishments to these. But it's basically, this is the process. Make my bases. Doesn't always have to be white. Could be craft, could be black, could be cream color, depending on your papers. You choose. Then I pick my patterned paper. What am I going to put on each card? Then I pick my cardstock paper. What is going to be my base and what am I going to use for borders and bases. Then I go through and I get all of my colors in my stamps that I want to use. And then I got my stamps out. And here's just a little tip for you if you do have a lot of stamps. So these indicate to me that there is something in there for a sympathy card. I'm going to actually do this system for other things and then just write it on a piece of paper, because I'm continually taking out my stamps to be like, okay, what does this one say? What does this one say? But if I have a basic knowledge of these would be something I could use for a sympathy card. And I've done that for my May Made It cards as well. Then I don't have to think about it. These are the ones I'm going to pull out. These are the ones I'm going to look for. Then I have several blocks. I pick out the ones that I like. I go ahead and get my scrap white paper, and I'll show a picture in a minute here. And then I will take each color with each stamp, and I would do one color at a time. And then I'll just stamp several of what I want on the outside of the card. They all got stamped twice, because if I messed up, then I didn't have to get all the colors back out again. And then I went to my die cuts, as you just saw, and I went through my die cuts and decided how I was going to cut out these different sentiments. So I'm going to go through these real quick so you can see they're not assembled, but you can see sort of what that mind thought was. And then some of these are going to have two different mats, and they're not all just a one piece, so you can see how you can mix it up a little bit. And then this is going to be something to this effect with the sentiment in the middle. And same for this one. But I have a little bit more embellishing I want to do. I think some of these I want to add some ribbon. And I will do a final go through after I get them all done. But here is a general look at the different cards I'm going to make. And my mass making process. I might have to change out that green. Not sure I love that. So I hope you found this helpful. I will do a little flip through at the end. So I have all the cards done, but I saved this one to kind of show you to the last how you can add different elements to the card that just make them look elegant. So this step that I have done on some of the cards that you're going to see would have to be done before your card is mounted to your mat is mounted to the base of your card, because I want to get a nice edge fold over. So what I'm going to do, sometimes I would use score tape, which would be this. And I would just run it down there and then put it around the edges. This, you won't see it because it'll be clear once you pull each side off. But for this one, I think it's just safe to go ahead and lay some glue down. So I'm just gonna get it in the center. I'm just gonna make this my center and kind of eyeball that, because it's, what do we make this one? 4, so at 2.5. So if I just center it on my mat, I kind of know what line to go down, and I'm not going to be too particular. I just, when I lay this is where I'm going to be more particular. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a bead of my glue, trying to keep it straight on there, and just go straight down that line. Then I'm going to go ahead and lay my lace. And I'm following these marks. I'm not looking at the glue, and lay that so that I can get it straight across there. Now the art glitter glue sticks very, very quickly. It does take a few more seconds with lace, and I've have one crafters that they actually came out with art glitter glue for fabric. There's no glitter in it. I think I've said this before. It's just the name of the product. So then what I would do is turn this over. Obviously, if it has the score tape on it, it's already going to be sticky. And I just put a little bit of glue and get that stuck down. And then I would take this piece and I'm going to mount it to the top of my card and put a little extra glue where this lace is at, just not that it's going to come up, but just so that it helps stick that down. Okay. That looks pretty good on either side. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my sentiment. And then I'm going to go ahead and my card opens up this way. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this down, and I'm going to try to get this in the middle because there is another little embellishment that I want to add to this. So where's my middle? About right here. And I'm going to go ahead and add some of these flowers. So these are actually from Dollar Tree, Crafter's Square. And I like to buy just the white ones. These are sort of like a mesh little paper flower. I like to buy the white ones because if I want to dye these any other color, I've got it right there. And then I can always pop that middle out and change it if I wanted to. But I can take coffee dye, I can take my watercolors and paint this any color I want, instead of having a bunch of different colors laying around that I might need a blue one, but then I don't use it again for a year. So I took the foam piece off, and the reason is number one, I don't think they stick very well. Now you could re-add the foam if you want the height. I don't necessarily need it, but also because this already has the little bead, it'll go through the mail just fine as long as your beads aren't like super big and protruding. So I took the little foam piece off to give the extra room that I feel like I need for the bead to lay flatter. But you can mail these. I have mailed them and have not had a problem. So I thought this would look cute if I took the top, did one on the top and did one on the bottom. And then you just added a couple little elements and made a beautiful card. Now for the flip through.